Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative.
They're asking me about everything, local, state, federal, all the time. How do I do this? How do I do that? Why can't I get a speed hump? What's going on with the consent decree? Hey y'all, welcome to Ask Attica. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning. Hey y'all, welcome to Ask Attica, my weekly podcast series. I'm very grateful to Stay Live Streams for producing this podcast. We have a wonderful guest with us today, Miss Ronyale Smith, who is the owner of Blak Koffee, along with her husband, Kevin Smith. So we have a great conversation coming up for you, and we'll be right back.
Through every note, every performance, the arts connect us. The arts connect us through joy and through awe, bridging cultures and generations. From intimate theaters to the grandest stages, the arts bring us together, reminding us that we're never truly alone. When we experience the arts, we experience each other. Kentucky Performing Arts. The arts connect us.
All right, welcome back, y'all. We're here with Miss Ronyale Smith, owner of Blak Koffee. So I want to start with a question I like to ask some of my favorite guests, and that question is, what is bringing you joy today?
Mm, there are so many things that are bringing me joy today. Um, just overall, I'm extremely grateful. I have a lot of gratitude. I'm joyful that my parents are still alive and well. Definitely, they head up the village. I'm just grateful my children are well, my grandchildren. I'm grateful to be able to have two coffee shops and to provide jobs to people. I'm
How
grateful.
many coffee shops?
Too.
I love it. Okay.
I'm grateful for the placement of these coffee shops as well. And the more I see and the more I do, the more I realize that these coffee shops are not about me. It's really about the community. And so it brings me a lot of joy to be able to provide something nice for the community that has never really been before, anything like that. So
Oh, I
that's
love that.
joy.
Well, thank you for that. So, talk about the community. Y'all are intentionally located in the West End, both
Yes.
of your locations. What does the West End mean to you?
Oh goodness. So first, I'm gonna start by saying I love history. My mother always made sure that we knew our history, and whenever we go on vacation or do anything, we would have fun. But she also made sure that we went somewhere where we would learn about our history. And our tagline is where coffee culture and business meet. So the West End to me symbolizes culture. It's our history, and I can't help but to think back to when I was a little girl and you know being downtown in the West End with my cousins and my grandmother's house, and so that's really what I think of. It takes me back. It's very nostalgic for me just being in the West End. I grew up listening to my grandparents talk about Old Walnut Street. So the fact that Black Coffee One is on Jefferson in the heart of Rockford,
Yeah.
um, it's only right to commemorate Old Walnut Street.
I love that. And Black Coffee is more than a coffee shop, or it's not only a coffee shop. It is a gathering place. It is where community, culture, and business meet. Can you talk about some of the things that you initiated at Black Coffee One and what you're doing here at Black Coffee Two that's brought people together?
Certainly. When I first opened Black Coffee One, or as I was planning to open Black Coffee One, I really wanted it to have kind of a retro feel, Old Walnut Street, because again, like I said, I grew up listening to my grandparents talk about, they would go to work on Friday and when they would get off from Lucky Strike or wherever, they would go to the Top Hatters Club or to the Chili Parlor. And I was just really intrigued by that time in their lives when, Old Walnut Street was a thriving and bustling place of commerce for the Black community. And so, in keeping in that same spirit, I allow other Black-owned businesses to come in and do pop-ups. Whenever we have like a special occasion, it might be Black History Month or Juneteenth or our anniversary or just because I feel like it, we'll have other Black-owned businesses come in and set up. And to me, it's a way of creating that ecosystem. It's keeping money in our community. It's giving other entrepreneurs an opportunity to have their products out on display. And it's a win-win because their customers get to see Black Coffee, my customers get to see them. So I'm really intentional about that. And to me, it's like bringing Old Walnut Street back to what it originally was.
I love that.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
and I love it because for me personally, because I grew up in Beach Terrace,
Mhm.
so Black Coffee One is right across the street,
Yeah.
and then I'm a longtime Parkland neighborhood resident, and so Black Coffee's right here at the Goodwill Opportunity Center at 28th and Broadway. So thank you for that. We're gonna take a break, and we're gonna come back, and I got a couple more questions I want to ask you after this break.
Hey guys, before we get back to the live stream, I'm Tracy, the bartender at Southern Hospitality Bar and Grill, located at 3402 West Broadway. You guys got to come and check us out. You can call your order in, and the phone number is 502-822-1474. Again, I'm Tracy, the bartender at Southern Hospitality. Come check us out, guys.
All right, welcome back, y'all. You're probably watching live on Facebook and YouTube during your lunch hour. So I hope that you are eating well, getting lots of protein, and staying hydrated. It's hot out there. So we're back with Ms. Ronyale Smith, owner of Blak Coffee, and I got a couple of questions for you. So I want to make sure that I get those in. One is, what are your hopes and dreams for Blak Coffee? Because I feel like y'all are constantly growing.
Yes. Um, we are growing, but not too quick. I don't want to, saturate the West Louisville with Black coffees, but I do have hopes and dreams that one day we will be able to franchise Black Coffee, just to be able to do what other the big national brands have done in other Black communities all over the United States. I would love to be able to do that. And I just feel like the more I talk about it, the more I put it out in the air, the more it's in the ecosystem, God's going to pick it up and he's going to do his thing, as he's done with Black Coffee here in Louisville with 2 locations. So, again, I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. It's not me, it's all God, because there's no way that I could have done all of this myself and not completely screwed it up.
Right.
So, I just feel like God knows my heart and He knows, the purpose and what Black Coffee is here for. I mean, and He will deliver on making us a franchise one
I
day.
love that. Yes. Well, you make me think about one of my favorite places in DC, and it's Busboys and Poets,
Yes.
right? And
Familiar.
y'all are like, our busboys and poets. So I like that.
That's interesting that you say that because my business attorney, I actually grew up on the same street as my business attorney. She's a little bit older than me, Dana.
Okay.
And so when she first started, when I first became a client of hers, she always used to talk about busboys and poets. So, and I'm familiar with busboys and poets. So to be revered in that same manner is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, we love Black Coffee. So my next question for you is, what's it been like having your business here in the Goodwill Opportunity Center? And I just want to say to folks who are watching, thank you so much for watching. And we're intentional about doing the podcast here. Sometimes you'll have folks come in and you'll hear laughter and conversation. That's what community is about. That's part of it. So embrace it, own it, because it just gives you a picture into what it's like to be here at the Goodwill Opportunity Center. So what's it been like for Black Coffee to be here?
It has been such a blessing to be here. Goodwill, they are amazing partners, and I'm really grateful for them because I had some reluctance and some hesitation when they first approached me about putting a Black Coffee here, but I'm telling you, they have made it so easy to partner with them, and I'm just grateful on a day-to-day basis about what we're able to provide for the community here in this location. Um, just a, and just giving people a glimmer of hope. Like if I can do it, you can do it too. There's so many people that walk through here on a daily basis that have goals and dreams and hopes of opening businesses, and for them to see me, here because I'm here every day. For them to actually see it, and I never pass up the chance to speak a word into those people, a word of encouragement, and just letting them know, like, you got to trust God in all things, and He will make everything all right. So that's what it's like being a partner in
Okay.
Goodwill.
All right. That makes sense. I can see it. I feel it. All right, y'all. We are going to take another break and come back with our last couple of questions for Ronyale. Um, again, thank y'all so much for tuning in. And I do just want to add, if you happen to have any questions or comments, please do put them in the chat on Facebook or YouTube Live, and I'll check in with Maxwell so that we can see when we come back from the break if y'all have any comments or questions, and then we're going to close out this interview, and then we have another guest coming up afterwards. So we'll be right back.
The team at Norton West Louisville Hospital would like to invite you to a community update and listening session. In partnership with the Frazier Museum, we are so excited to give you, our community, updates and hear feedback from you as well. Let's talk and bridge the divide. In attendance will be myself, Lorenza Townsend, Chief Administrative Officer for Norton West Louisville Hospital, and Russ Cox, CEO of Norton Healthcare. And now, all we need is you. Join us at the Frazier Museum. The address is 829 West Main Street, beginning at 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., July 15th. Come and talk to us. Come see me. Come bridge the divide with us. But if you do nothing else, stay live.
All right, y'all, welcome back. Again, we're here with my special guest, Ms. Ronyale Smith, the owner of Blak Koffee. So I've got a couple more questions for you before we wrap up. The first one is, what are some words of wisdom that you have for Black women business owners?
Okay, so I guess the first thing I'll say, but I've said it already, you have to trust God. You just have to. He's good, and he delivers on his promises. Um, so I would say, you have to have that stupid, crazy, blind mustard seed
Yes.
of faith. You
Yes.
have to. And I mean, and when you do, it just blows your mind because what we want and what we think is so minuscule compared to God's goodness and what He really has for us. So that would be my first word of advice is to trust God. The second thing is to just keep going. Keep going. I had so many no's and so many doors closed in my face, and you know, I've had my feelings hurt and all kind of stuff.
Right.
But, in all of it, I kept going. I kept going. I was persistent, and sometimes you have to pivot. And so don't be afraid to pivot. You know what I mean? So, and network, get out there and put your business out there, put yourself out there. And I will say this everything that you need as a Black woman entrepreneur is already in you and around you. So that would be my words of wisdom for other Black women entrepreneurs.
All right, y'all. Hope you're listening and taking notes on those words of wisdom, right? Trust God and keep going and do your networking. So my last question for you is the podcast is called Ask Attica.
Mhm.
So again, I'd like to ask some of my favorite guests, do you have any questions that you would like to ask me?
So I do.
Okay. This is always where I get nervous, y'all.
So my question is, what are you doing now? What are your plans? Because I asked you earlier if you
Yes.
were still
Yes.
in government.
Yes.
So what are you doing right now?
Thank you for that question. So
Mhm.
I am out of office. I've been out of office for almost 3 years now,
Mhm.
and I've made it my business to really focus on civic education. Because one of the things that I learned as an elected official is that a lot of folks just don't know, right? And
Right.
so I feel like I know. So I want to share some of what I know with folks so they can build power. To me, that's how we become more powerful, is that we know how government and politics works.
Right.
So I'm doing that as part of just my give back, my care for community. I also work full time at a 501c4 nonprofit. I've been there for about 4 years now.
Mhm.
Works in the southern states. Do a lot of work with like Jackson, Mississippi on their water crisis. They still don't have clean bathing and drinking water in Jackson, Mississippi.
Wow.
I know. And they do a lot of work here in Louisville and across Kentucky with folks focusing on equity and justice and fairness issues. The organization is based in North Carolina, so
Mhm.
they do a lot in North Carolina around voting rights and expanding access to the ballot. Because I mean, if we can make voting easier for folks, we'll probably have more people who actually get out and vote.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I love it.
That
Thank
along
you for
with the
asking.
education.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I'm sure, that probably is becoming more challenging with all the DEI
Yes.
initiative rollback. I just
Yes.
learned yesterday that U of L University of Louisville rolled back their DEI initiative, and that's unfortunate and a little disheartening.
Yes.
But one thing about us, we gonna make it through. We
That's
gonna
right.
survive.
Yes.
We've been getting it out the mud,
That's
so
right.
we will be okay.
That's right.
Let me see. Oh, and I just want to put this out here
Okay.
that I too believe that civic education is extremely important. I mean, we need to know what's going on along with the line dance with the fam.
Yes.
So,
Right. Yes.
so I am opening up Black Coffee to you anytime you want to use it to educate the
Wonderful.
community,
Thank you.
either location,
Okay.
because that is important that we know.
Yes.
You have to know why you're voting, and
That's
whether
right.
they say we lack, we perish for lack of
Yes.
knowledge.
Exactly.
So we need to know what's going on.
That's right.
And if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Exactly.
So thank you for what you're doing, and whenever you need a space, call me.
I'm gonna take you up on that because next year's huge. It's the first time that Louisville's gonna have a nonpartisan mayoral race and metro council race, and it's gonna be so important for me to help, for all of us to help educate folks about what that means. Most folks are like, "Oh, I don't even know what nonpartisan means. Break that down for me." And I want people to know how to vote. Because sometimes folks get in that voting booth and they get nervous. They're like, I don't know what to do here.
Right.
So,
Right.
not telling people who to vote for is not what I do, but how do you actually use this ballot to get your voice heard? So, thank you for that. I'm going to take you up on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you. And after my second interview, I'm going to go get me an omelet. Because I usually get the same thing, but I heard when I was here 2 weeks ago that the omelets were delicious. So I'm going to get me an omelet.
We got the chef in the building, so yes.
But thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, y'all. We're gonna transition to our next guest, but I have some news updates for you before we do that, or not before, but as our next guest is coming up, and we're getting all the angles and everything set up. So, y'all, a couple of news updates. Here we go. One, Louisville Metro Council passed a $1.2 billion budget yesterday, and I want y'all to know some of what that entails. So there's a $25 million increase for LMPD. The Louisville Metro Police Department is getting an additional $25 million. That also includes $6 million for what's being called Cop City. I'm going to put this up to me while we're bringing up our next guest, and that is to be able to provide that $6 million for what is basically Cop City, a training ground for first responders. They had to cut millions from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So that tells you what the political priorities are. Cutting millions from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in order to build Louisville's version of Cop City. I am excited, though, that there is $14,200 in the budget for the Parkland Community Garden. As I often say, when I was on Louisville Metro Council, we pulled together 125 volunteers to answer the request of elders in the neighborhood to build a community garden. Geez Louise, y'all, about a decade ago. So it's still going strong, and I'm really excited about that. Another news update, as our guest is joining us, is that you may have been following the case of 18-year-old Ernesto Manuel Andres, who is in Bowling Green. Well, he was taken away by ICE, he and his father, and they were separated. So Ernesto was sent to Monroe, Louisiana, and he has been released as of yesterday, Thursday, from that federal immigration detention center. He literally just graduated from high school, y'all. So ICE is going after kids, teenagers, literally just graduated from high school. He and his father were arrested on June 4th, and I'm so glad that he is back home safely and will follow this case. I want to say yay, a huge win in the New York City primary election this week. It definitely gives me hope for possible change in Louisville next year with the mayoral elections. As I was just saying with Ronyale, remember that next year's elections are nonpartisan for mayor and metro council. A few more pieces of news, and I'm sure that my guests and I will probably talk about some of this. As you may know, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett did not get the leadership position for the House Oversight Democrats after finishing last in a preliminary vote. And Crockett says that she is now going to be joining the 92% in her advocacy, in the way that she moves. So I want to say, come on over here with us, Queen, because we give so much, and this is what it looks like when we don't get back what we give. The other piece of big news this week is that Roe v. Wade was overturned 3 years ago this week. And of course, this country still does not have reproductive freedom or reproductive justice. Y'all are out here forcing people to give birth while cutting SNAP benefits. Doesn't make much sense. We also know that Black women in Kentucky are still more likely to die in childbirth than white women. That's why when I was a state representative, I filed repeatedly the Maternal Care Act to address infant and maternal deaths. Um, I don't know, y'all. I keep thinking about this issue because Black women are still paid significantly less than everybody else. Our communities and our bodies are still over policed, and forcing birth, not having reproductive freedom and justice, is a form of trying to have power, domination, and control over our bodies, and I just can't sit with that. Y'all may have heard on some weird news that a 22-year-old British man staged a mock wedding at Disneyland Paris to a 9-year-old Ukrainian girl. I mean, you just can't make this news up. And then finally, we celebrated Juneteenth last week. Sadly, far too many people don't even know what Juneteenth means. And while you're Googling what Juneteenth is, I do want to share that the 13th Amendment did abolish slavery as involuntary servitude, but it did not ban it as punishment for conviction of a crime. So, just some news headlines this week that I want to bring y'all up to speed on. And as our guest is joining me, I'm going to pull up my questions for her because I've got quite a few. And she's over there huddling with our producer at the moment. But I think that we're going to share these mics. So I'm going to put my mic back down on the table so that you can hear us both during this conversation. Yay, welcome, Shreeta.
I'm so nervous.
Don't be. I don't even know why. You're like a
You,
natural.
but you are like, you've been my mentor. I've been watching you, so like stalking you.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I saw some old pictures
Oh,
on,
gosh.
and I was like, yep. I remember that was the first time I saw her, and I was like, she's so tiny and so powerful. So thank you for having me on.
Thank
You
you
look
for being
beautiful,
here.
and your
You
locks
too.
look great. I
Thank
was gonna wear
you.
mine up, but I
Yeah.
was like, I'm putting on my hat.
Yeah.
I'm in ward, so
Okay, right. Like literally.
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 So
So y'all, welcome Shreeta Walden as my guest. Here's the thing: Shreta's wearing a lot of hats, so I want to be mindful of which one she's wearing today because I know what it's like to work for a nonprofit and to be in politics. So I know sometimes we have to separate the two. So how are you showing up today, Shreta?
my my word that I've been using, I'm showing up unbound. So
Okay.
I'm gonna show up authentic
Okay.
and as me,
Okay.
and it doesn't look like all the other leaders
Okay.
that are around. But I mean, I'm serious, and it's not to gas. I don't want anyone to ever think I'm gassing you up, but I have watched y'all before I got to know you. And when you do that with people, it's real because you can't fake that.
That's right.
And the only way I'm a draw to people is their authenticity. So after watching you guys, I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna show up as me because that's regardless of how I show up. I can show up perfect, and I'm still gonna be a Black woman showing up, and I'm still gonna be treated the same. So I might as well show up the way that
That's it.
I need to show up for myself.
I
So,
love it. All
yeah.
right then. That's how we'll move. We'll move accordingly. So I'm gonna have a couple of questions for
Okay.
you. We'll take a break. I'll come back,
Okay.
ask a couple more. We'll take another break. I'll come back, probably close us out.
Okay.
So all right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So my first question for some of my favorite guests is, what is bringing you joy today?
And I took notes because I wanted to make sure that I hit these points with you. So for me, it is slowing down.
Mm,
And being intentional with my pace.
that's live.
That's live. I love it. um, being intentional with my pace. Uh, I rush around. I found that over the last years in my life, in my career, I was everywhere and doing all things, and that makes sense. But this year, I said we're being pulled in so many different places that we have the opportunity to miss.
Yes.
So slow down.
Yes.
And it brings me immense joy to move in this slowness. So I no longer apologize for walking into a room late.
Okay. I'm intentional about my time now. This morning I had a meeting at Vocal, and my son needed assistance while he's completing these very important papers for school, like master promissory note, and understanding it. I took my time. Um, the the meeting is important, yes. However, my time and the way that I use my time is even more important to me now. So slowness, when I thought about that question, I was like, slowing down has actually brought me joy. Okay. Yeah. I want y'all to know that's saying a lot because Shreeta is doing the work at the Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition and doing work in our community and is a mama, a friend, a lover, a daughter, and all those things, and is involved in our political arena, which is like a full-time and part-time job on top of one another. So this is a lot coming from Sharita to say that what's bringing her joy is to slow down. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I'm gonna jump right in because I know we can do that. So we're at a critical moment in the history of our country, and what I want to know is, what does it mean for you to live, using the word you said, what does it mean for you to live unbound in this moment or in this time? So for me, um, I had a note that I put down. It's being able to say no without guilt. Um, and as I reflected, I was like, and my yeses, again, being unbound is my yeses are intentional and in alignment with me. That's important because a lot of people talk about balancing. And I'm like, no, because, and I know this for you because I got questions for you. Okay. This is called Ask Attica. So, oh yeah. So I'm like, it's no such thing as really balance because people may look at me and be like, but you've been gone here, you're gone there. Like, I'll send an email to you and I'll see, I'm out of here, I'm there. And I'm like, but that doesn't mean that it's imbalance. Right. It means that whatever I'm doing in this moment is alignment. Yes. So redefining is what unbound. Unbound to me means I'm not boxed in no more. This country lied to us on so many levels. Yeah. And this year I found that it's been critical for me to take a critical look at all the lies and start unlearning them and saying, I'm not about to be boxed into your tradition, your system, your expectations. Okay. So I'm unrestricted. Ooh. And you don't get to control that. Yeah. I'm my law, the laws of the land must be aligned with my moral compass. So when I hear our leaders of the past say things like, we need to make good trouble, I'm gonna break rules. I'm not breaking a law. I'm not compromising my moral compass. I'm not compromising my integrity. Yeah. I'm not harming people. So I'm going to create and disrupt because that's me. And it's a part of what we're going to do to build community. So that, you know what, Attica, we fight for liberation for our people. Yes. And what I had to really embrace this year and accept was I had to start with liberating my mind. I had to start with what's the sense of freedom because I figured out the chaos I was in, which was I'm trying so hard to create a freedom, but I haven't figured out the freedom in here. Because in a sense we are actually free up here. We can free ourselves. But freeing myself has been a process. Unlearning things that my mama taught me, that my grandmama taught me, that's been passed down, that the church taught us. I'm like, oh, I'm grieving. So that unbound, that being out of the box, that freedom, I now feel the freedom that now I want to feel like I want to push into the community. Now I know what I'm looking for. Before it was like, yeah, we need to be free. We're all tied to chains. But now I feel like, okay, I got the tunnel vision that I need. It feels, and even this talk right now is bringing me joy. Okay. Because I actually haven't had a chance. I think I sent you back like a long response. I'm so glad Attica knows who you are now. Yeah. She asked me one question, I'm gonna be like, wait a minute. Yeah.
is because I figured out nobody really asks these kind of questions, right? They don't ask you for you. They ask you for what other people need to hear.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, she's asking about me. And let me really sit with that and take notes and listen to myself say it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Oh, I love that. You make me think about Shirley Chisholm and like all the uns. I'm like unbothered, unbossed, unbound. I'm like
that's
all
what I
of it.
see. Oh man,
Mm,
it is so unapologetic.
yeah.
It's fierce.
Mm,
It's blackness in its completeness, and it's raw, and it's scary, and it's hard.
mhm.
It's filled with tears at times,
Yes.
tears that nobody know about,
Mhm.
and silence,
Yeah.
and isolation,
Mhm.
feeling alone.
Mhm.
I see it, like all around you. When I see you in a room, it's like you're in a room full of a million people, but I see you, and I'm like, she's not connected to those people, but she is here.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. I love it. So I'm curious though, after hearing you talk about being unbound, have you written anything about it, like a blog post or anything, or something?
You know, after this, I think I am.
Okay, good.
I think it's time. I think this gave me an opportunity to see that my voice, putting voice behind it now, and really exploring it, because I felt even more free by sharing it before even getting here, by writing it down,
Yeah.
by thinking and reflecting and meditating. I was like, wow, it's even freedom. And now, even talking, verbalizing, putting sound behind my words is making it even powerful. Like I feel the energy. And that to me is huge. So I think I think that's another part of this journey that I'm on, is to actually blog about it.
Okay.
So
Please
thank
do.
you for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
because other people need to experience what you're experiencing, and sometimes seeing it in words, your written form, that could be what somebody needs. So,
Yes.
all right, thank you. All right, y'all, we're gonna take a quick break and come back, and I got a bunch more questions for Shreeta. As y'all can tell, we could be at this all day. So during the break, I'm gonna do a time check with Shreeta, see where we are. But we'll see y'all back here in a few.
The team at Norton West Louisville Hospital would like to invite you to a community update and listening session. In partnership with the Fraser Museum, we are so excited to give you, our community, updates and hear feedback from you as well. Let's talk and bridge the divide. In attendance will be myself, Lorenza Townsend, Chief Administrative Officer for Norton West Louisville Hospital, and Russ Cox, CEO of Norton Healthcare. And now, all we need is you. Join us at the Fraser Museum. The address is 829 West Main Street, beginning at 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., July 15th. Come and talk to us. Come see me. Come bridge the divide with us. But if you do nothing else, stay live.
All right, thanks, y'all. Welcome back. We're here with Shreeta Walden, and like I said, Shreeta is doing good work with the Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition, is politically engaged. We're going to talk more about that. So, Shreeta, my next question for you really goes back to your conversation around Unbound. And so I want to know, what have you found that you needed to, or you continue to need to unlearn while becoming Unbound?
So there's a few things. I think there's been this whole idea that people, and it's, I think the energy is shifting, but there's this idea that we heal and do this work in silence. Um, and I've said, no, I'm going to heal out loud. And I started that process by showing up in spaces authentically. I grew up in a very militant, Afrocentric household. Love is demonstrated by showing up, being present, financially rooted, and knowing who you are, very rarely showing vulnerable sides. So, unlearning that vulnerability is a sign of weakness. My team that I lead see me when I'm struggling and it's difficult, they still see me, not hiding that. Being accountable out loud versus in leadership roles, sometimes, especially in white supremacy and in these systems, you know, leaders have this facade that we don't make mistakes, that we don't. So no, that's not fair. How do we bring new leaders on? And especially when we're trying to dismantle oppressive systems, it's to say, no, you know what, I screwed up. This is what we're going to do about it. And I don't have a loss. Like, oh, that happened. That was a loss. All of my times where I experienced defeat, I didn't quite hit the mark. It's all lessons.
Yeah.
Because I need to learn something from those moments. Not to say I've never been a victim.
Right.
I have been harmed, but I don't sit with that and say that, oh my gosh, I've been so hurt. If I stay focused and stuck on that, then I don't grow.
Yes.
So how do I remove myself from situations where I don't, I'm less likely to be a victim in that way? So it's a lot about being more out loud with it, and then loving out loud. I I haven't always been a person that loves out loud. Like I said, my family, me and my mom are so alike that we weren't really affectionate. So when people be like, "Oh, I'll give a hug," I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
hug." Okay. Grieving. Um, I realize that the tears that I have, even in this conversation, some of them bubble up, that I'm walking through grief. I'm balancing grief and joy at the same time. Um, it's okay for me to express that. I'm learning that a lot of my anger and rage is really embedded in grief too, because of the lies that are being exposed through our presidencies over the years, and our leadership and our legislation. And to be really frank, the experience of running for office last year allowed me to have some really good looks at things that made me feel terrible. Canvassing, which I got a chance to canvass with you, but I felt like, wow, we've been lied to. People in our community don't know they bank off of our ignorance. And it was like, oh, so y'all want us to be ignorant. You're okay with that. That's how you've managed to have us believe that our voice don't matter and our vote don't count. Oh my gosh. So when you get hit with that, it's easy to say, well, I'm just pissed, I'm angry. But when we sit back and say, I'm hurt, I'm deeply hurt.
Yes.
And now I have to grieve the Shreeta that grew up in that and moved through that and harmed people through that, thinking the way that I thought. I have to grieve that and bury it and now move forward and grow. So it's such an ongoing process. Think about it. I'm 42. So all these years that I built becoming this woman, and now looking back, just 10 years itself is still, I'm still working through that. Not only am I unlearning the outward spaces, politics, our workspaces, I'm unlearning the spiritual walk. Okay. Now that one has been the deepest because it's a core belief. And to really sit with what has been taken away from us. We focus in on slavery.
Right.
But to take away a person's identity, going back to really understanding Kunta Kinte, being adamant about keeping his name, reflecting on Minister Farrakhan and talking about a name that was given, and Malcolm X in interviews talking about a name. Now I'm like, ooh, it almost it brought me to a point of like a mouth. I felt like a depression for a second. I'm in therapy, like, oh, I'm grieving. So in order for me not to lose my mind, is to accept that this is grief and loss that I'm walking through, and I may be doing this for the next 6 months of this year. This process is long term, but it is, again, it's like that balance. Because now with this grief, this acceptance, this knowing, this awareness, this ability to build who I am today, there's the joy. So it's like, here it is. What I am balancing, this grief and loss,
All at the same time.
all at the same time.
You mentioned the campaigns we did last year. So Shreeta ran for state representative. I ran for state senate. We were both in races where there were incumbents. So here's some bold, brave Black women over here. And you said something to me after the campaigns because we both lost. You said we both did not win those campaigns. You said to me, instead of looking at the loss, why don't you look at what you won? Because we won thousands of votes, y'all. Whew, we won thousands of votes, which means we have what we need to continue to build politically. We go with the folks who are the willing, right? The folks who are the ready, and we work with them to help educate the folks who may be unaware, right? Or who may be a little bit hesitant to build the political power we need to really make some change and some difference. So I appreciate you for that reframing, right? To think about things differently because we put in the work.
That was amazing.
And won thousands of votes. So thank you for that. I did have one more question before we go on a break that I want to make sure I ask, and that is, and you talked about it some, but if you want to expand, I would like that. How are you navigating being what you called yourself a radical leader in this season that we're in while holding the grief you talked about, growth, partnerships, and political work all at once?
So the first thing is therapy. I had to really ensure that I embrace a space because I know in our community and our culture, people hear that and they're like,
You're right.
I had to really say to myself, I need a space that I can dump this unlearned stuff, this trauma, this generational trauma, this historical trauma, this United States that is inflicted on us. I need a place to do that, and I need to do it in a place where ethically they're bound to be there.
Yes.
And a funny thing about it is I chose a white woman intentionally. I know I'm in the field, I'm a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. And because I know I tend to show up in spaces when I do, even as a person who's supposed to be helping me, and I see a Black woman sitting across from me trying to help me, my mind is going, I know what's going on with them. They're showing them every day. I wonder what political thing is happening. Like my brain is going. If I show up with a white woman, I don't give a damn. Like you here to help me, right? You here to listen to me, and I'm gonna throw it out there. And I want to sign something and let you write a book about it. I said it several times to my therapist. They were like, but I did that intentionally because I need that space, and I want other people in positions of power to identify that space. I put down therapy, tears, and truth telling.
Okay.
I've embraced my tears more this year. It's cathartic for me. I found that as a clinician, I've always told people tears are cleansing. I don't think I believed it for myself. So I've given myself permission to do that. And it's another space of joy. I connected to joy. That's the reframing I had to do to embrace it. And then truth telling. Truth telling is not easy though, Attica. I find that I'm holding myself accountable too in those moments, right? So having to speak up at times where I didn't even realize I was going to have to speak up and advocate for someone in a position. I'm like, oh, this is the moment I have to do it. And I might lose some money with this, right? But this is the truth I walk in. So it's connected to my joy though. So I do it. When we talk about navigating, again, it took me back to the alignment. Again, there's no such thing as I threw my hat to become a precinct leader, and then I was like, okay, legislative district. And
Okay, wait now. I believe in civic education. You're throwing some things out there. What is a precinct? You said leader?
Yes. So the good thing about this is that I'm about to join these different groups to learn about my roles more.
Okay.
But the way that I decided to do it, someone out of my leadership, and that's between you and Shamika. That's right. That's what I call my leadership. Shared about these opportunities coming and said, we need to build power in our communities, and explained it from that level. And so when I saw precinct leader come up and I said, what does this mean? And I asked a question, what is having access to the people in our community, voter education. I went back to our canvassing and was like, okay, I'll be able to engage, and I want to be a part of deep canvassing, which I learned I would be able to be part of. The next thing was legislative district chair. I was like, oh, what does that mean? So I'm gonna be honest, I'm still ignorant about a lot of this.
Yeah.
But when they said that a lot of our meetings are about learning too, and then I'm connecting with people like Logan and Roz, they're gonna teach me. I was taught by Shamika and Attica Scott, so I'm like, oh, okay. So being a legislative district, you have access to my district,
Okay.
the residents who are going to be voting, and the influence of being able to engage directly with them to create the opportunities of learning, so making sure people know their rights as voters,
Yes.
making sure they understand the political people that are running for office,
Yes.
and then to have a say behind those political people. So I stopped there.
Okay.
But the reason I wanted to do it is because of canvassing last year. I was like, people in our district didn't even understand the difference between a senator
Yes.
and a state rep.
I know. Yeah.
They didn't understand what a metro council person, their council person, had responsibility over.
Yes.
They thought that the senator or the state rep, because especially because they see how vocal Attica Scott is, oh, you're going to change all these things. It's like, oh, wait a minute, this is what. So I said in our first meeting that people lack knowledge. We need quick bullet points. And seeing in my first meeting for volunteering, for canvassing, people taking my advice and actually using it and coming up with a guide, I was like, oh, so this is the space to be in so that we can create change at the ground level. Before we even get in there and throw our hat into the race,
Yes.
this is how we change those numbers to go over the people who are incumbents who need to be moved out those seats. I have to start here. So that was the decision to move that, because people are like, wait a minute, what? So I said it's strategic. I knew that running for office for me, I didn't want to tell a lot of people this, but I didn't think people would follow me. As I said, I didn't walk into this saying, oh, I'm going to win. I said, this is about to be a learning lesson for me. I come out winning regardless.
Yeah.
Some people may hear that as talking down on yourself, and I knew not to say it out loud because everybody doesn't understand that kind of talk. But it taught me that it prepared me for these opportunities. I feel like if I didn't run for office, I wouldn't have understood my why for being a precinct leader and a legislative chair. Um, so alignment. I looked at it. I said, is this going along with the compass of life, what I'm trying to do in community?
Yes.
And it absolutely did. There was nothing. I know that I reached out to you and I reached out to Shreeta. I was like, what do you think? But what I was doing, I think, was that lower self was countering. Nobody. And that was the challenge, to go to people who would be like, okay,
Right.
do it.
Right.
Like, so I was like, go to someone who's in it. So thank you for pausing so people can understand, because that's what we lack is understanding. I feel like the spaces you create, especially, there was a recent post that's in the thousands or something.
Yeah.
People are learning. So I think just that pause for that moment, I appreciate that, because people are going to want. But that's how we get more people involved.
Exactly.
To say,
Speaking of getting them involved, can you share with folks how they can get in touch with you? Because what Shreeta's talking about is this political power building, and so there's folks who are going to be watching who are going to say, "Well, I want to get involved, but I don't know how."
Yes. So the easiest way, because my emails, I need to clean them out. So go to my Instagram or my Facebook, which is Shreeta Marie, and that's SHREETAMARIE. And the reason why I say that is if you jump into my inbox, I even check the ones that we're not friends, because I know people are starting to reach out. I noticed that, so I try to check that daily. But go to my inbox, and I'll make sure you also have access to who your legislative district chair. We need voices. We need people active and involved. And you can get involved. There's so much that we all can do that I'm learning about. So please reach out so that I can connect you to. And eventually we'll have a platform for our district, or district. I'm District 44. So if you live in that district, and the way you can find that is go on our government website, Google
ky.gov.
There we go. And you can look up what's your legislative district by putting in your address.
Yes.
And if you are in my district, I need you. I do. I already have 2 people that have given me their emails when I was at a meeting. Every meeting, that's what I'm doing too now, is getting people, finding out what district they're in as well. But I'm not just stopping with me. I need people to we got a lot of new people that I don't know if you saw the picture, but it's a lot of us that joined. So I feel excited about being a part of this 4 year group.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, all right, y'all. So you know how to get in touch with Shreeta if you want to get involved with some political power building. We're going to take a break and come back, and I'm going to have a few more questions for Shreeta. I probably have a lot more questions for Shreeta because, as you just saw, she'll say something that makes me think of something else. So we'll see you back here in a little bit.
Through every note, every performance, the arts connect us. The arts connect us through joy and through awe, bridging cultures and generations. From intimate theaters to the grandest stages, the arts bring us together, reminding us that we're never truly alone. When we experience the arts, we experience each other. Kentucky Performing Arts. The arts connect us.
Hey, I know you're watching the live stream right now, but I want to take a moment to tell you to check out this new book right here over my shoulder. Believe me, it'll be worth it.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining our Ask Attica podcast conversation. Our special guest is Shreeta Walden. And of course, with Shreeta, I can jump right into it. So, we talked a lot about the political work that you're trying to do. It's partisan, part of the Democratic Party, which in Kentucky and in Louisville is a hard nut to crack. So, can you talk about, in any form you want to talk about it, or many forms, what does acceptance mean to you? Because I feel like partisan politics is a place where I've had to say to myself, I will never be accepted. So that's how I have to move.
Yes, I'm not saying that I'm just sold on being a Democrat. I have discovered through this unlearning that Democrat, Republican, they're all the same. So I did have to learn that. That this two-party system is really jacking us all up. It creates the space for ignorance. And as we have recently seen, Democrats and how they responded with the impeachment.
Yes.
I'm like, see?
Right.
So accepting what is doesn't dis- doesn't keep me from being a part of the movement for change. Accepting, and I think it also comes back to you. I think there was something profound you shared with me before I went into Emerge, reminding me, because I think if we didn't talk before I moved into that program, I probably would have quit halfway through. But it was a reminder that this is about democratic women, not a Black woman. And I heard you, but once I started the journey, I was like, because I would have quit after day two. It was acceptance. And I feel like maybe my journey for acceptance started there, saying, Shreeta, yes, the way, it's like the spook who sat by the door.
Y'all need to read that book
and watch the movie. My stepdad is in it. So it's a really good demonstration. We have to go within the system to dismantle it. We have to learn. We have to learn all the nuances. We have to learn and understand how the two-party system works in order to dismantle it. I also liken it to when the first projects were imploded in Chicago, where I'm from. And I remember we all went down because this was a big moment. I mean, these projects had historical, even though it was harmful to our community, there was history in there. So a lot of us went and traveled down off of Lakeshore Drive to see the first ones come down. And what was significant about that moment is that they didn't explode these buildings. Because if you explode something, bricks would be flying, people would get hurt. They imploded. And that meant that they strategically, and they told us, the city told us, that what they did is they lined the inside each floor with these explosives, right? And there were certain explosives that would allow it to crumble within. Ooh. And I said, that is acceptance. We have to get inside.
But isn't it also what happens to our community? Let's get them to fight one another.
Oh,
So they crumble from
they
within.
crumble
We
from
don't even have to
within.
do anything. We sit back and watch.
Mhm. Isn't that something?
Mm.
It was that. It was the having the paradigm shift within myself. Um, accepting what we are actually dealing with. Accepting that the people who've been fighting, our ancestors, our political figures that have stood up, that have fought these battles, that have been killed doing this, that honestly, at times I'm like, I don't know if I could have been them. Because they stood up when no one was cheering. There was a interview that Minister Farrakhan did back in the 80s, I think, with a talk show host. And as he's talking, and he's saying things that I feel like I've heard you say, I've said, I've heard Shreeta say, and other people speak on. And you have rally, you have, yeah. He spoke, and he got booed, and he got, how dare you? You sound like you're gonna hurt us, and we're scared of you. And I'm like, could I? Could I have actually spoken as profoundly? They laid the foundation for me to even speak this way. And I don't think people fully understand. I had to really pull that in and do some internal work. That a lot of my aggression and anger was because I didn't fully accept this dynamic that we're in. I didn't accept this system mentally. Yeah. I didn't see it and go within it. Okay. And a lot of us in our community struggle with that. I don't like the police, therefore I won't become a police officer. I don't like them, I'm going to stay away from them. And that is because we have not accepted what our history, what our history is with law enforcement, how we ended up here. The children are bad. They need this. Why parents? Well, we haven't fully accepted the harm that was inflicted on us. You know, back when we were brought over here. Wow. That this was a part of the plan, you guys. Like our kids, if we are angry, they are angry with the mind that's not developed. Their amygdala isn't even fully developed. Like they're growing up with trauma, generations of trauma before, so they are doing exactly what they're supposed. They're acting out. So because I see it, I'm like, it is a large elephant, and we're right at a toenail of it, of trying to figure out how to pull it together. And we can, and we may not see it in our lifetime. That was another acceptance moment. I'm like, I've got to do it all, which is the years before. And I said, I'm not going to see all that I want. But what I will see is the things that I am being intentional about. So let me do the work intentionally, which is the slowness, which is the joy, which is the taking of my time, which is the being quiet and sitting still and showing up where I need to show up. So it was a lot of mentally. Yes.
That sounds like it, which is important work to do.
Yes.
Right? It's important. It's emotional, mental, spiritual health.
Yes.
All of it.
All of it.
So you talked about acceptance. So where I work full time, FJN, you're familiar with us and our work.
Yes.
We recently held a symposium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, focused on reclaiming memory and reimagining resistance. Reclaiming memory and reimagining resistance. So what are you reclaiming and reimagining this year?
So this year, I am reclaiming the sacredness of my voice. Our voices and our power, especially as Black women, especially as Black revolutionary women, has been weaponized. It's been weaponized for both parties. You know, I've seen it with the Republican Party with some people who speak against their community. And then I see it on our side where they like the glitz and glamour. They like the performance. They feel like we're performing when we're not.
Right.
But they like it, so they utilize it, and then they throw you aside. So now I choose when to show up. Shamika Parrish Wright, Councilwoman Shamika Parrish Wright, I told her I will always use her slogan because it fit me and aligned with me, is I choose how to be used.
Yes.
That I fully embrace. And it's interesting when people notice it now. They're like, you're not, I didn't see. Right, because my voice is sacred. My voice is power. My energy is too.
Yes.
I'm reclaiming my spirituality. and I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's been a huge part of the alignment piece with me. So I know we'll come back to that. Reimagining though is I'm reimagining what political spaces look like and political leadership look like. Um, I'm looking at it with the influence of harm reduction, the work that I do. I value the foundational principles, and if people really go, you can go to National Harm Reduction website, and you can see the foundational principles. They are really uh, rooted in community and social justice building around equity. So when I think about reimagining how we move, I look at, well, policies should be aligned in reducing the harm that is being inflicted on the communities that are most impacted. And yes, we talk about Black communities a lot because we are the community that sits at the top of that most impacted list in all sectors and all disparities and all social determinants of health. But there are so many more, and I credit moving to Kentucky, the South, with learning more about that because rural spaces deserve that same energy. So, which may encompass more white people. So when I look at it from that lens, my questioning of political decisions, of legislative decisions, are coming from a framework of if you say you want a safer and healthier Kentucky, then why are you doing X, Y, Z? If you say that you support a community that's celebrating Juneteenth, why did you support law enforcement by giving more funds and billions to that sector who continues to operate in this way without accountability, like consent decrees? So it's helping people see that I'm gonna challenge you. That's right. But I'm coming from a place of love, and I'm coming from a place of integrity, which you're supposed to come from when you're as a legislative leader. You're supposed to have ethics and and integrity. So I'm not bringing anything but what you're supposed to do. So I think when we can teach our communities to fight in this way, which is building, we have to build trust and we have to build relationship with our community. But when we can teach them those tools on how we actually reduce the harms that are inflicted on us by challenging those systems with the very thing that they bring to us, I think we'll really change some shit. Like, I'm sorry, but we're going to transform it.
Yes,
we have to.
yes, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. We can reimagine, we can rebuild, we can I don't know, all of it.
All
right?
of it.
With the will to do it.
That's
and
it.
doing it collectively.
Exactly.
So thank you for that. All right, y'all, we're going to take another break here. We'll come back and I have a few more questions for Shreeta. So thank you again for joining us.
The team at Norton West Louisville Hospital would like to invite you to a community update and listening session. In partnership with the Frazier Museum, we are so excited to give you, our community, updates and hear feedback from you as well. Let's talk and bridge the divide. In attendance will be myself, Lorenza Townsend, Chief Administrative Officer for Norton West Louisville Hospital, and Russ Cox, CEO of Norton Healthcare. And now, all we need is you. Join us at the Frazier Museum. The address is 829 West Main Street, beginning at 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., July 15th. Come and talk to us. Come see me. Come bridge the divide with us. But if you do nothing else, stay live.
All right, y'all, welcome back. So glad that you are joining us. I have a few more questions for Shreeta before we wrap up. Again, as I said, Shreeta is an amazing leader with the Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition and the political leader for our time. So she said we'll come back to it, and I want to come back to it because it's important to me. I am a woman of faith. I often refer to myself as a divine disruptor. So can you talk about how your faith guides you?
My ancestors. I feel more and more that I research what was taken from us, what was stolen from us, what was forced out of our hands is our spirituality and our connection to what the Creator has provided us. And I really have been looking at faith from Western Africa, finding out that more of my lineage is from the western coast of Africa, um, and And what does that look like? And it's really asking God, who is my creator, to surround me with the ancestors who are part of my lineage and those that are part of my divine calling. I am guided by my divine calling. I am not guided and no longer connected, especially as of this year, to Christianity. These religious spaces that were created for power, to control, and to completely destroy who we are as a people. I have had the beautiful opportunity to experience spaces in professionalism, like the Black Women's Conference that was before.
Yes.
Whew, that being in so many different, so the National Harm Reduction Conference where we acknowledged, gave earth and land acknowledgement. These were in professional spaces. Whoa.
Yes.
So when I'm seeing that there are other leaders around me that look like me, that are embracing who and where we come from, it's given me a permission to make those changes in my life. And this transformation, again, is a deeper, I've been grieving. I've sat with fear at times of even my family's thought as I've removed myself from a system that has hurt us and continues to hurt us. And I even had a difficult conversation with a couple of my sisters, and I had a split second thought as they were looking at me while I was trying to share and explain where I was spiritually. And I felt, oh my God, I was like feeling self-conscious about sharing my disconnection from my soul belief in the Bible as the all-seeing everything and what I should have my faith in. But then I had to sit back and say, this is where I'm at. And if love is love, then love will continue to be between us. And so it's been a very, I would say it's a grounding experience. My faith is what is guiding me, and I love that you call it a divine disruptor. And I think that again goes back to what is our own moral compass. And it goes back to John Lewis in Good Trouble. It's a part of our spirit. If I don't speak up, if I don't stand for what is right, what is just, what is equitable, then I'm letting down my creator. I'm letting down the ancestors that came before me to do this. So my faith is what guides me. When I get up in the morning, I ask, what do I need to say today? Who do I need to engage with? Make sure they're in my circles. Thank you for another day and another opportunity to do this. So everything that I do and how I move, even in profanity, because I'm like, see those restrictions that you all give me? I can't do this, I can't do that. And I'm like, who said that? Right? So I really do use my centering and my grounding, which shows up as no sometimes, which shows up as silence, as I'm not going to speak, I'm not going to sign that document. Oh, I will show up. Oh, I'm going to be especially loud. It's being very intentional and making sure, and sometimes everyone won't agree with it, and that's okay, because is it aligned with my creator and my ancestors? So that's who's guiding me, and introducing that to my children and my family is it's been interesting watching them, but they're following behind me. So and seeing them grow lets me know that yes, this is worth it. So I love this new journey. It's very new this year for me. So I'll be interested and curious of what I'm going to look like next year as I'm on this new part of my faith journey.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. You talked about judging people of faith for like using profanity, for example. I think about some conversations I've been having recently about the Gorilla Kirk Franklin song. And so it's on her album from last year, but I'm just now hearing it because it's starting to be played in rotation.
Is this the one that won her the gospel
Maybe
artist?
I don't know, but I've been having these conversations with people about the judgment that's coming from religious people about Glorilla doing song with Kirk Franklin. And I'm like, I thought our job was to minister to people. She's ministering to people you would never reach with your uppity bougie self.
Right. Never.
So instead of judging her for doing what she's supposed to be called to do, either embrace and enjoy the song or just close your mouth. You don't have to say anything at all. But people love to judge and not even see what is right in front of them. But she is actually doing the work that she is called to
If
do.
you're really a Christ follower, though, Christ was all over the place, everywhere.
Listen,
Because he had to meet everyone.
exactly.
So I'm like,
Exactly.
yeah, like you can't do. We do this to ourselves and our culture and who we are as a people and how diverse we already are.
Yes.
Inside naturally.
Yes.
Inside of us. I always say that, like, you guys talk about dance and moves and hair, and I'm like, in Africa, the traditions and our actual ceremonies, like, if we really had the opportunity to keep our culture the way it was, maybe people would understand why they add certain things to their hair.
Right.
Maybe they would understand why they don so many necklaces around their neck, to understand where that is coming from. The ancestors are embedded in us. The bloodline runs deep and it's inside of us. And a lot of us don't even understand why we do and move the way that we do. We don't just have rhythm because it's just a thing.
Right.
It's in our blood that we hear something and our bodies move and our head move and our thought. It's our ancestors. And they will always be here.
I love it. This is such an important conversation for me as a woman of faith, as I often say. Because the other thing I'm thinking about is, how do you block your blessings when you are judging others and deciding how others should show up and to move? Allow people to be unbound, right? As you said. The other thing it makes me think about is how Christianity has become this professional thing. It's like a professional Christianity, a professional way to worship, and so that's part of where, to me, that criticism comes from. So, anyway, I know we got to close out. I know Stay Live Streams has things to do. But, so my second to last question to you is, how are you balancing, and I'm using the term balancing loosely, being a precinct captain, district chair, legislative district chair, nonprofit executive director, a mama, lover, friend, daughter, sister, etc.? Like, how are you managing all of that?
So when I look at what time needs to be divvied up, what I started looking at within my team is building up leaders around. So it's a tribe approach. It's a village approach. Even in my household, I kind of beat myself up sometimes because I'm not the traditional mom. Like, I remember sitting in my bed one night and I was like, when the last time I cooked for my household? And like, we don't sit around a table, right? We may be talking and eating and passing in the kitchen, or I go to my bed because I'm exhausted. I get in at 8 o'clock. What I started saying is, no, I've created leaders around me, and we all have a specific goal and gift in this life. How do I leverage that? So in every space, I've accepted my role as this visionary leader, as someone who's going to be a champion, who has chosen to step into my gift of being out front. That means that there's a tribe behind me, though. So every space doesn't require me to show up the same. It is learning how I need to show up for every space. So some spaces, especially in my ED world, I found the only reason I'm able to actually continue to be an ED and operate in these different spaces is because that space, it started with my workspace. Because I was like, I put so much energy into this. And it was really leaning into my leaders and being like, I got all this gift and talent around me. And coming up with a collaborative approach to leadership around me. So really leaning into that, into my supervisions, is what I started doing, and seeing them grow. I'm like, oh, so the weight of my leadership has significantly, I've been able to take some pounds out of the bag.
Oh, good.
Looking at my household was another thing, was like, why am I holding myself down to these concepts and traditions of America? why not look at my village around me and see how we can all work together? We're young adults now. I've done my part as a parent of raising them to this point. If whatever I didn't do, accept what I didn't get a chance to pass on and move forward as a mentor and as a guide. And since I've made that shift and mentally every opportunity I get to do it, I'm like, okay. So that pounds have been dropped off. So how I show up at home now is different, and it helps me be able to have a safe space at home. I needed to incorporate what rest and safety looks like for me. Okay. Because I am, to people on the outside, they'll think you're spread thin. Right. But what I've also noticed is people are like, gosh, you look so light. And I'm like, because I'm not spread thin. Right. I think I am. Yes. But I've learned how to put everything in its place, and I learned I don't have to show up at 100 in every space at all times. That's right. So I can be these things when I need to. And when I take a break, I take strategic breaks. So sometimes I'm taking a break from everything and everybody, and sometimes I'm taking a break from different things. Okay. And I found that that's how I can manage life around me and enjoy it, and truly lean into joy and what brings me happiness and what feels liberating. Because why bring oppression into my life when I'm already living in an oppressed society? These expectations of white supremacy, if we're not careful, Attica, we become white supremacists to ourselves and our mentality. And a lot of us have. The idea, I've seen it, the idea of busyness and the idea of productivity. I like being productive when I need to be. But who's creating that standard? And am I really being productive because I look busy in front of a boss? No. It's not it's not real. So really taking away the values and the systems and the ideas of white supremacy out of my life. And it's hard because it's like a dependency thing. So I'm constantly having to address it in myself. Like, that's oppression. I'm oppressing myself. And I actually had a psychiatrist of mine who I've been with for over a decade. He's kind of talked about the self-oppression that when we put these expectations, he's a white man too, but when we put these expectations, we're bringing in oppression in our life. And I'm like, wait a minute, how the hell do I oppress myself? Like, that's crazy. So no one can hold me to that standard. So that managing has become a thing I have control over.
Okay. I'm going back through all this conversation this morning. I'm like, you talked about the implosion. You called them in yourself. That's part of how or one of the ways in which white supremacy shows up in our communities when we end up fighting ourselves, right? And so everything we talk about, how can you get to a place of liberation and radical freedom and joy when you're constantly doing this? You're constantly falling into yourself because you want to either get the favor of white people, or you believe that you can't challenge white people, so you challenge your own self, your own self, and your own people, the people right there next to you. So anyway,
that's a whole. We could get into a whole conversation.
So I want to wrap up with what I think is one of the most fun parts of the interview.
Yes.
It's where we switch the mic and you get to ask me questions. The podcast is called Ask Attica.
Yes.
So turning the mic over to you, Shreeta. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes.
Okay. Look, she's too
I was like,
excited,
this
y'all.
is the fun part. So, all right. My first one was you called yourself a divine disruptor.
Yes.
Can you share what are the risks? Because I thought about that when you said it before. I'm like, but that takes risk. So what are the risks that you have accepted to be a divine disruptor? I'm gonna be taking notes, y'all, because this matters.
So the risks with being a divine disruptor, there are lots of risks.
Yeah.
One of them being what you said about people looking at you differently because they're like, you're a woman of faith, and yet you're constantly challenging white supremacy, for example, right? Challenging institutions and systems, wanting to do the radical disruptive work of dismantling racism. And people are going to look at me sideways with that, and I know it, and with skepticism. That's a risk that I'm willing to take.
Yeah.
I also know I run the risk with people who I worship with, of looking at me and saying, why are you out in these streets? why are you making noise? And why don't you love the police? They're protecting us. And why are you confronting the mayor? He's doing the best job he can do. Like my own people, right? That I worship with, saying things like that, comments like that. But it's a risk worth taking because they may never acknowledge it. But I'm doing the work of making life better for them. They may never acknowledge it ever, but I'm doing that work. So they don't have to be afraid when they drive it. Wow, any flashing lights behind them, right? They don't have to be afraid of somebody kicking in their door. And it's the wrong door. They're looking for somebody who's not at that address anymore. So I'm doing the work to make sure that it happens. But it's a risk.
Yeah.
It's a risk for me to call myself a divine disruptor and do that work, and also ask myself, is this what I'm being called to do? Is this really what I'm being called to do? Does it feel right? Does it sit well with my soul? Is it in alignment, as you say? And if it's not, then I have to be willing to step away. Also, like the 92%, and say, listen, we've done a lot. So let me just step back because this is actually not in alignment. This is not the divine calling that I'm receiving. So this is maybe work that I'm not going to be part of. There's so many people out there who can do the work. We don't all have to do everything. Yeah. But then I know that's a risk because then you always have the people who say, I didn't see you at such and such. Instead of saying, appreciate you showing up at the other event, right? right. But appreciate that you were at the 97 events, but I didn't see you at this one. Right. Wow. So it's all of it.
I did, as I think about how you answered that, and I was sitting here and like, weight. I feel heavy. It's a heaviness, it's a weight. And I often wonder about this outside of, seeing one of your closest friends who's married. I think about men, I think about relationships. Yes. And I think about other people who sit in positions, especially Black women. A lot of us navigate life as single women.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm always like I really would love a podcast with other Black strong women to talk about this, but how do you navigate? Because I divvy between that. I'm either single or I'm dating or I'm dating or I'm single. And I'm like, and sometimes I fear that honestly it's me being honestly not creating space for it because I create space so intentionally everywhere else and actually kind of push that one to that's probably the space that actually gets pushed off a lot often. Like it's the beats. I don't eat beats. So it's the beats of the world for me. Like
but you're missing out if you don't eat beats.
Right? So how do you navigate being a seasoned leader in this work and that space?
Well, I came into the space after 13 years of marriage. And I was married to a Republican from West Virginia whose father was a coal miner. And I was like, where did they do that at? That was the first Black Republican I'd ever seen in my life. But we met at college. We were at historically Black college. So, he had to have something going on, right? Hey. HBCU. So 13 years of marriage and 2 amazing kids out of that marriage. So I come from that perspective. So I have not needed or wanted to be in a relationship for so long because I have more than a decade of marriage. It's a partnership. We're right there together until it's not. And it wasn't anymore for us, and that's okay. So I've had time, and it's interesting because when I was in office, my dating life was outside of Kentucky. I was like, long distance relationships because when I was in office, I just did not trust anyone. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to date anybody here because I don't trust it. And so now that I'm no longer in office, that opens up a whole new set of doors for me in the dating world. Because now I'm like, okay, no longer have to have that barrier up that I thought I needed to have before. And I probably did. It was a safety mechanism.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that because you actually gave me some room to accept. Because I'm like, I was in a 14-year marriage. And when you said, I didn't feel the need to rush into, okay, all right, Shreeta. Like, when you did that, I was like, that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. It's that it's okay, to not have to jump in. Because I did over a decade. When you said it, I was like, that's what it is. That actually centers and resonates. So thank you for sharing. But that was one of my questions. I have one more that I think is pretty fun. If you had to choose for your political legacy to be a love language, what's
Hey.
What would you create? What would you call your political legacy as a love?
Love language. Ooh,
I
that
know.
is
Have you ever been asked a question
no.
like it was something I can't? I was sitting there thinking it while I was writing before I was like, oh, love language.
What would it be? It would be key lime pie and ginger tea.
Tell me more about that.
Key lime pie for me is smooth. It's not too sweet. It's just right. And ginger tea is good for you, right? It has clears up, healing energy. So it's like, smooth, sweetness, healing energy.
That makes sense. The way you walk in politics seems so effortlessly when you talk. It really does. It feels, and I feel clear. Like I understand. It don't feel complicated. I start off complicated, and when I lean in to listen, I'm like, oh, that's what that meant. Like, okay, but that makes sense. Isn't that a cool question?
It is. I love it.
I know it's you're probably gonna be thinking about it longer. Like I thought about it. Like, what would that be?
Yeah.
Because it is a love
Ooh,
language.
yeah,
It's
what
a,
was that?
it's a,
Okay.
it is a love language, right?
Yeah.
What we do, it's the love we have for our community, and no one can change that.
No, they can't. Oh, thank you so much for those questions. Thank you for being my guest today, Shreeta Walden. Make sure that you are following her. She also has a podcast with the Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition, so make sure you check out the podcast. And periodically, she'll put out an announcement saying they're looking for particular kinds of guests. So make sure you're watching and looking to see because that guest might be you. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to Ask Attica. As always, thank you to Stay Live Streams for producing this podcast. Hey, you can check it out live on Facebook and YouTube, and then every now and then we'll post up clips as well on our different social media platforms. And of course, shout out to Blak Koffee and the Goodwill Opportunity Center for this space. They've opened it up to our community to use for something like this, bringing a community conversation to your front door. All right, y'all. Take care. Have an amazing weekend.
Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative.
They're asking me about everything, local, state, federal, all the time. How do I do this? How do I do that? Why can't I get a speed hump? What's going on with the consent decree? Hey y'all, welcome to Ask Attica. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Friday